This week on Winchester's Deadly Passion, Melissa Bachman heads to Alaska for her first trip ever for a spot and stalk bear hunt on Prince of Wales Island. The entire hunt is from the ground with a bow, and we're talking lots and lots of black bear. And it's not just Melissa who has a tag in her pocket. She's among friends, and let's just say the bear are in big trouble.
Alaska is probably one of my favorite places in the entire world to go hunting. Now, this was my first trip to Alaska for a bear hunt, but when I was in high school, I was actually lucky enough to go up for a family vacation. Now, this wasn't just any family vacation. I was able to go out halibut fishing, and lucky me, well, I ended up with a 180-pound halibut. It was an incredible experience, but the best part is, well, it definitely got me hooked on Alaska. So this time, I'm headed up to do a bear hunt. Now where I'm going? Prince of Wales Island. It is one of the best bear destinations in the entire world. The reason why? Well, it's simply the number of bears and the caliber of bear. There are some absolute giants here. And the way you hunt them is totally different than most people would think. You're going to be out looking for grass flats, watching for these bear on the shore. Now you're not sitting over some stinking bait, you're actually out there actively pursuing the bear. Now the other thing, well, these bear are coming down from hibernation, so a lot of them are hungry. That's another great place where you can start using a predator call. Now we weren't planning to use a predator call on every stalk, but it was something that we were going to be keeping in our back pocket just in case. One thing that made this trip extra special is the fact that I got to bring my brother along. Plus, I was among lots of friends. We were going out with some friends from Ketchikan who knew the area and had a big boat to take us out on. Now these guys had tags too, so we were going out thinking if things go well, we could end up coming home with a lot of black bear.
I've been in Alaska for 15 years. I'm in the Coast Guard, and this is my 5th tour, and I'll retire in Alaska. When Alaska called my name growing up when I was a kid in Oregon, I wanted to get to Alaska. I finally got here and don't ever plan on leaving. But Alaska it's adventure after adventure after adventure, and only your ability to think of what you can do next limits you. I mean, there's so much to do here. It's untouchable. The great thing about it is it's public land. There's nobody kicking you off. It's not posted. You don't have to lease it. A normal guy like me can go out with a boat, step off the beach, and be on public land that allows us to hunt a number of species. This Tongass National Forest is millions and millions of acres of adventure.
Now this was my first trip for black bear in Alaska. We got set up, got on the boat, and started scouring the shores for bear. Now there were a lot of bear, but I quickly found out not every bear is in a stalkable location. We're out here on Prince of Wales Island, and we've got bear everywhere. It's obviously bear 30. We've got a big boar out here. We've got another one that we saw walking the shore here. And we've got one a long ways over here. Now the biggest problem is this wind is swirling around in here. With archery, we gotta get in close. So we're not gonna necessarily look at which one's the biggest bear, which one's the most doable bear. So we made a few stalks, saw a ton of bear, but nothing had quite worked out. Then we spotted a beautiful bear with a perfect coat. Now he looked like he was in a very tough place to try to do a spot and stock hunt with a bow. There was just not enough real estate to get in close. So I decided, being the nice sister I am, I'll let my brother go on this stock. I'll come right along with him, but he was gonna go up first. So we used as much as we could of the shore to get up on this bear, but we simply ran out of stockable real estate. We had got to the end and there was no getting closer. Now this was about 150 yard shot. My brother got down on a rock, was all set up, and before this bear could get back into the thick stuff, he made a great shot.
I just got him. Oh, what a stock. That was amazing.
Nice work. Now this bear went right down, and my brother, well, he was thrilled. And I was tickled too, because I hadn't had a bear up in Alaska.
Lucky devil, first one.
Yep.
That's okay, set the bar real nice and high, and now I can try to beat it.
Hey, don't I get $1?
But it was cool to see him get his first bear, watch how it all had happened, be right next to him through the entire thing, and it all worked out absolutely wonderful. Plus, I was hoping I got a few bonus points as being the nice big sister to let little brother go first.
Winchester's Deadly Passion is presented by Winchester Ammunition, Thompson Center, Cuddy Back Digital, Bog Pot, Cabela's, She Outdoor Apparel, and Hunter Safety System.
After spotting quite a few different bears and having Aaron take a beautiful bear, well, we had spotted another giant. Now this bear, he was in the perfect place because he was out by a creek. Now what that creek would do, well, that would probably help with any extra sound. Now as quiet as we tried to be, well, let's face it, you're not exactly silent when you're doing a stock, especially with all the shells, rocks, everything on the beach. So we had one of his senses down. Number two, we had a great wind for where he was at. As we rounded the corner, we could see this bear still feeding. Now we were trying to get in close, and there was a rock halfway there. We knew if we got to that rock, well, that would give us a little added protection. Now, a bear's eyesight, well, they're not that great, so that's not a sense you necessarily need to worry about. In fact, if you have a bear that looks over at you, usually if you stop and just hold still, you'll probably be okay. With this in mind, Jason and I decided it's time to go forward. Now, he had a rifle along, and all the way, well, he was trying to get me to just stop and take this bear. It was an absolute giant, but I was confident we could get inside of 30 yards and hopefully make the shot. As we got up to that creek, we started crossing, and although it was a little tough, it wasn't higher than our boots, and this bear was still standing there. I could hardly believe it. Now, this was the first real stock that I had been on with my bow, and my heart was pounding. We went around that rock and closed the distance down to 30 yards. Now, this was in close, right where I felt comfortable, and as I was getting ready, thinking about drawing, this bear lifted his head and he could smell us. The wind had changed in the back of the cove and he was out of there. Now, it's really unfortunate when you do all that work getting so close on a stock and then just at the last minute, the wind changes. But that's the way it goes. If I'd have drawn 10 seconds earlier, well, I might have had a giant bear. But I didn't. I was trying to get comfortable and this big boar took off. What a stock. We got from 67 yards, had to make a decision at the rock. Am I gonna switch this for a gun or stick with the bow? Well, I decided we're gonna stick with the bow. We got all the way up to 36 yards and off he runs. But either way, I have to say, the best stock I have ever done. And hopefully that was just the preparation for the big guy.
Tip of the week is brought to you by Can-Am. The facts say a lot, but the ride says it all.
For me as a bow hunter, one of the most important things on my bow is the sight I use. And I like to shoot a one-pin sight. Well, not every sight is created equal. I like using the HHA Optimizer Ultra. Now what a 1-pin sight will do is basically allow you to dial in the precise distance that you're going to be making the shot. Now this can be great because if you have the time to range an animal and it's at 26 yards, well, you simply dial it in right to 26 and you will be dead on. Now the other good thing is when you sight this in at 20 yards and 60, pick your tape and place it on, well, not only do you get the distance out to 60, but the tape goes to 80 yards. So by shooting 60, well, now you can go all the way back to 80 and you will have a sighted in bow. Now, of course, you need to shoot and practice there, but it's already done all the mathematics for you and your bow sight will be set.
Winchester's Deadly Passion is presented by Swarovski Optic, North American Hunting Club, Rage Broadheads, Matthews, Can-Am, Wildlife Research Center, and Hot Mox.
There are a lot of different ways to hunt Prince of Wales Island, but on this trip, we decided to go out in Jason and Vince's big boat. Now this made it much easier crossing the Clarence Strait on a daily basis, but we were also able to look over more territory. We could get from one cove to the next, check it out, and see where the bears were. Once we had a bear spotted, we'd pull the raft off the back end and make our stock. It really made for the perfect setup because that way we could watch the shores, and if we needed to, we could sit right out in the middle and watch several different grass flats all at once. That way we could keep all our eyes watching and hopefully have a big bear spotted soon.
You could walk a long time in this country and not cover a lot of country. The shoreline is tough, the tides are dramatic. By far the best way to cover this country is in a big boat. Watch your charts, stay in the deep water, and look for the grass flats. Every chart shows grass, every chart plotter shows green grass, and if it's south facing, that's going to get the best sun exposure in the spring, and it's going to have green shoots of grass, and that's what them bears are looking for. So instead of planting yourself on one area, I would get in a position where you can see several grass flats in one spot and either sit and drift and watch all those grass flats or cover grass flats with a big boat, make a decision, make a plan when a bear's spotted, and put it together then.
Not every stock works, but never know. Anytime you're hunting with a boat, you're going to be doing multiple stocks. And we did that. Some would work, some would get closer, and some, well, we'd barely even get in the raft and the bear would take off. Now sometimes the bear would just quit feeding and move on, but we were seeing a lot of black bear, and that really keeps your confidence up. When you're in a target-rich environment such as Prince of Wales Island, well, it's hard to get down because there are so many bear there. But I was hunting with a bow, so I needed certain type of situations to get in close. We would usually glass the area over and see if there was enough real estate to get inside 30, 40 yards. If there wasn't, well, there were lots of other people on the boat with tags as well. So when we spotted an absolute giant, he looked like a complete square out in the middle of the grass flat, and unfortunately, well, he was in a spot that I was not confident I could get in close enough with my bow. So I decided to let Mike, who was also along, go out and go after this bear. This was a beautiful bear, and I decided, you know what, this would be a good time for me to film, get another possible bear down. Mike and Jason stalked along, and when they got to where they wanted to be, well, Mike was all set up, perfectly rested, and they made the shot. But as that bear took off for the woods, well, he put one more in him just in case. And that's one of the things when you're hunting black bear. If you have a chance to put another bullet in him, you absolutely want to. Now, we were hunting some very, very big boars. And when we got up to this guy, well, he might have been the biggest bear we had seen yet. Beautiful bear down, and really a great representation of how big these bears can be in Prince of Wales if you take the time and look for the big boys. Now once we got Mike's bear down, we had been seeing another bear just right across the way the entire time during his stalk. Now Jason had his rifle along as well, so I said, you know what, let's go after that one. Jason and I got up closer to this bear, another huge bear. It was unbelievable. In this one coat, that were two giant bear we spotted. Jason got up, got settled in, and made a great shot.
He's hit hard, took him down on the first shot. Should be a done deal. He was hit hard, knocked down the first one.
Jeez. Look at that.
Look at the cool V.
Oh, he's got the V too.
You know, we come over to Prince of Wales, this is the kind of bears that we're looking for. This is some of the best genetics in the United States, probably in the world, for black bears on Prince of Wales. And they produce some monsters if you let them grow up. This is very, very recognizable on big bears. You look at them on grass flats, this rub in their forehead. Big boars do this for some reason. These two bears we got down, both of them have this rub, and both of them are big bears, just to confirm the theory. Let's see how these paws. Oh yeah. He's big. He's a monster.
It's a slug.
Now we had two giant bears down, and our raft, well, it could barely hold all the weight, but everybody was all smiles.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you're hunting an area like Prince of Wales Island, seeing this many bear out with friends and family and can put this many black bear down, well, I wasn't even concerned if I got my bear. I was thrilled. Although, let's face it, I was really hoping to get in close on one of these big boys too. When it comes to draw weight, it is super important to get everything set on your bow specifically to you. Now with draw weight, the last thing you want to do is have too heavy of a weight. Not only could you possibly not get to full draw when you're in the field, but you also could add a ton of extra movement and potentially spook the game you're after. So one thing I like to do when you're looking for draw weight is start a little lower. Your back muscles are muscles that most people don't use on a regular basis, so the more you shoot, the more you'll build them up. Now one thing to do, a lot of people wonder, well, what's the best exercise to do to build up those muscles? It's really quite simple. Shoot your bow. That's the best thing to build those muscles up. Sure, there's a lot of things you could do in a gym, but by shooting your bow, you will get much stronger, quicker, and you'll become a better shot. Now lastly, when it comes to draw weight, start out lower. Most bows come in 10-pound increments, so start out at the low end of it and build yourself up. If you ever get in a situation where you're on your knees or you're sitting, you'll be happy you had a lower draw weight and you'll be much, much more successful. Now I was starting to get a little worried. It was getting down to the wire. In fact, it was the last day on our trip. Now we had seen a ton of bear. We had got some incredible bear with rifles, but I was trying to do this as a bow hunt and I wasn't getting in close. I got close on one big bear, but at the last minute, the wind switched. Now it's one thing to see a ton of bear, but it's another thing to get inside 30 yards. But as we were looking around and I was starting to get a little disappointed, we spotted another giant. Now this bear, he was in a spot that looked great. It didn't matter. I was the one up and it was my turn to go. There was no time to waste. This bear was feeding away and we knew we were going to be running short on time. As we hit shore, we hurried up to the edge of the woods. That way we could have just a little bit of cover. No bear. Now, I figured this bear had already fed as long as he needed to feed and was probably in the thick bush and would never see him again. So I was a little disappointed. Well, now Jason decided to break out the predator call. Now, usually you can use a predator call on black bear. They are a predator, but this time of the year it works especially well.
These bears, one of their primary food sources is the fawns of Sitka blacktail. It's really the only meat that they're going to get. So several times I've tried to call deer out of these clear cuts, and the only thing that responds are the bears coming to the call. So I knew that in this situation, that this big boar, if he was a dominant boar, he'd respond and he'd come to see what it was, especially since he couldn't see us. Nobody believes in your calls. How'd you like that?
Hey,
That was
varmint calling, we called it a bear. Now initially it looked a little far back, but it was a perfect pass through. And when you take a quarter and away shot, well, you're not necessarily aiming at where you want the entrance. You want to aim at the exit. And the exit came right out behind the other shoulder, and my arrow was covered in blood. We knew a pass through on a 7-foot bear, well, that was a good sign.
That makes me happy.
That makes me extremely happy. We just got a poking young bear, girl.
Open young bear.
You know what? That's gonna go over 20 inches.
Look at the size of this.
You're well in.
This was absolutely the hardest thing on earth not to squeeze the trigger on.
This is a phenomenal bear. Phenomenal.
Look at the claws on this. I can't get over the size of his head. Look at this. Now walking up to this bear, well, he was even bigger in person. And I was just straight up giddy. I could hardly contain myself. Now this was a bear that I had worked hard for, really put in the time, let everybody else get their bear first, and finally it worked out. Well, this bear and I made a little deal that I would take him to Hollywood, and he chose the method with my bow. You know, he only went 30 yards, but he could have picked a better path because it's gonna be a long trip out.
Coming up next week on Winchester's Deadly Passion, Melissa sets her sights on mule deer, but she's doing it the hard way, all spot and stalk with a bow, and she's after some big muleys. We're talking several states, countless stalks, a few unused tags, but in the end, Melissa's determination and persistence bring her in close with a high-racked velvet muley in Colorado.